As I said at the top of the episode, we're going to talk local school funding. A new report out just this week. You can see a copy of it on the cover on the screen right now. Here to discuss it, we have our research director from the Public School Forum of North Carolina, Bock. Lauren, thanks for being here. And we have Beaulieu. Aaron, a return guest to Education Matters. Aaron is the Chief Financial Officer in Durham Public Schools. So thank you both for being here. Lauren, I'm going to start with you. This is the forum's report. What's the purpose of this study? It's something that the forum's been doing now for, I think, more than 25 years. But tell me a little bit about why. So what's the point of it?
So the Public School Forum looks at the local school finance study every year to separate local funding from other sources of public school funding, mostly state and federal funding. Our report looks at each county's local spending in order to examine the capacity and actual effort of counties to support their local public schools. So
what it basically, you're talking about isolating and to sort of figure what are the counties doing versus sort of what are the other resources, as you mentioned, from the state and federal. So since you've been doing it for so long, are there some overall themes or trends that the forum has found in this report?
There are. The gap between high wealth and low wealth counties continues to increase.
Yeah, I think we have a chart actually we're going to pull up. So yeah, go ahead.
We do. So our state's poorest counties continue to fall further behind our wealthier counties in terms of resources available to their local schools. Looking specifically in our report, the 10 highest spending counties spend $3,026 per student compared to $710 per student in our 10 lowest spending counties.
Right. Well, that's a pretty significant gap between our top 10, if you will, and bottom 10. Aaron, you've served. You're in Durham Public Schools now. You were in Pitt County before that. So you've kind of seen different sides of this coin. What are these numbers? I guess what was the impact? What does it look like when you're a CFO in a district when you see these kind of numbers?
Tremendous differences. In a district that funds $1,500 more per child than where I came from, it allows you to be competitive with the salary schedule, to offer a teacher supplement as high as 18.5% versus 3 to 5%. It allows you to actually have programming that's beyond what the state funds you. It gives you that local flexibility to have some innovation to provide some other choices within your county and your community.
Yeah, we've actually tried to, I think we've explained that before on the show, but just to remind our viewers, teachers are paid, there's a base salary that they get from the state, but what you're talking about is
teacher supplement.
The teacher supplement, so they can actually account it like Durham, and I know here in Wake County where we do the show, I think it's the highest supplement on average is $6,000 more. So it's obviously a major difference in terms of what you can provide your teachers.
Yeah, there's a drastic difference between the counties that pay a couple $100s to those that are, like you said, in the $5,000–6,000 range. That's a tremendous recruitment, not only locally but nationally when they compete for teaching and workforce across the entire country.
Now, you've helped us with this study before. I mean, what are the biggest challenges when you're as the lead finance guy for a district? Sort of what are your biggest challenges overall?
Well, of course, you always have that working relationship with your county. This is a great report that gives an objective look at how districts are funded and then also a county's ability to pay. So if the people that are at the table are able to make decisions, then you can talk through what is that leveraged ability for a county to pay? Where is their tax rate? What are they putting into debt service? This is a great condensed document that more districts should use as they go forward in their local budget process.
Right. Now, Lauren, Aaron just hit on a couple of the kinds of things that are in the report. So we've got what? Ability to pay, which is really just looking at what? The tax base?
It's looking at each local government's ability to pay as far as the property taxes. That's the primary way each local government can raise money for their schools and other government spending, and there's a wide variation of property value in the state's wealthiest and poorest counties.
Right, and that's one of the things that I know when we've had other guests on from some of our poorer counties, they talk about. The fact is they're doing as much as they can in a lot of ways. Now, we talked about, you showed the first chart. We're going to pull up a second chart that I think is really dramatic. This is the spending disparities by the county, Orange County, and I love Orange County, not picking on them, but they do have the highest per student sort of add-on. So tell me a little bit about this chart that's in the report.
They do. This looks at Orange's spending locally per student compared to the lowest spending 7 counties. And if you look at that, Orange County spends $4,734. The bottom 7 counties combined only spend $6 more per child than Orange County spends by itself. And that's, again, looking back to the property tax values. Orange County is a very wealthy county, has a lot of high property tax values compared to other parts of the state.
Right. And so, Aaron, it's safe to say, again, you know, these bottom 7 counties we just showed, the educational experience, I mean, regardless of how great the teachers are, how great the school leaders are, it's going to be different, right, depending on what zip code you're in.
Yes, a dramatic difference. The programming becomes very limited. You, again, work within your state resources, but the local dollars that you do get basically go to running your facilities. They don't allow you to have that additional flexibility to provide classes with smaller class size, pay your teachers better, on and on and on.
Right. Now, Lauren, what is the, I guess, the takeaway? I mean, you've got, you report this report out. We're going to have a state representative on in the second half of the show. They're looking at school finance reform, possible changes to the system. What does the Public School Forum with this report hope to get across?
So this report, as we mentioned, looks specifically at local funding, but when we're talking about school finance in general, it's important to look at the big picture, to look at the resources that the state, that the federal government, and local governments are putting together for our schools, for our school districts, to make sure each school district, each school, each child has the adequate resources to have a sound basic education as required by the North Carolina Constitution.
Right, so it really is, it's not just about the, you're really talking about adequate funding and equitable funding, because that's one of the things with these, the courts have found, Aaron, and you know this, the courts have found that it's, you know, the state provides, you know, a certain amount, but it's okay for the districts to do as much as they want to do separate if they can afford it. But like you said, we've sort of talked a little bit about how that. Any final thoughts on, as far as looking ahead to possible changes with the funding system overall?
Again, you've mentioned the weighted student formula possibility in the future. That's going to have a tremendous correlation to the local funding, because if people lose from the state, then it may put additional burden on the local. It may reduce some districts' local burden. So again, always trying to match up the resources to the process and have it as timely as possible.
Great. Well, look, we appreciate both of you being here today. We're going to talk a little bit more, get even a bigger picture about the national and state picture with our next two guests. But when we come back, more on school funding with UNC professor Dr. Eric Houck and Representative Kevin Corbin from District 120 in the mountains. But before we go to break, see if you can answer this question. In 2014-2015, public education spending accounted for 38% of the state's general fund. How much did education funding account for in 1970?